He took a deadly blast for the alien princess, then woke up before the entire alien court. The grand hall of the Elari royal court shimmered with colors that no human eye had ever seen. Crystals floated in the air, glowing softly, and alien glyphs flickered across the walls as if the building itself was alive. Species from across the galaxy gathered here, each more different than the last. Limbs where humans had none, eyes where humans had only two, voices that hummed like music instead of speaking. And yet the court was calm, almost polite as they waited for the princess. Elias Kane, human commander and Earth's envoy, stood near the edge of the hall. He was a soldier by training, but here he felt like a small insect in the presence of giants. All around him, beings of incredible size, color, and shape mingled, discussing things he could barely understand. Yet he observed carefully. A human had to survive first by seeing clearly, and only then by acting decisively. Princess Selyra appeared. Her presence made the hall fall silent. She was taller than a human, with skin that shifted between silver and violet depending on the angle of the light. Her eyes were golden, deep, and intelligent. Her crown was simple, yet it carried authority that could command armies without a word. The aliens bowed. The humans stiffened. Elias did neither. He simply watched. The ceremony was meant to be peaceful. Today, the Elari were showing their commitment to the fragile alliance with Earth. Words of friendship were being spoken, gifts exchanged, a display of unity, nothing more. And yet, as the first words of her speech left Selyra's lips, Elias noticed a subtle tension in the crowd. A ripple of movement among the guards, whispers among the alien diplomats. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but a soldier notices these things. Then came the sound, sharp, unnatural, like tearing metal fused with screaming wind. A pulse of energy shot from the far side of the hall. Time seemed to stretch. The aliens screamed, shields flared, and in that moment every eye turned to the source. The ceremonial platform shook. Sparks flew. Something forbidden had been unleashed. Elias acted before thinking. His training took over. He saw the princess, her golden eyes wide with shock, steps away from instant death. He saw the weapon's pulse, a strange blue-white light, moving faster than anything he had encountered. The instinct to survive was there, but stronger was the instinct to protect. He didn't calculate, he didn't hesitate. He stepped forward, placing himself between the blast and her. The energy hit him directly. Pain, or what should have been pain, tore through his body. Every bone, every cell felt as though it were being ripped apart. The blast should have erased him in an instant, left nothing behind. The light swallowed him whole. For a moment there was silence. No screams, no fire, no motion. Then the hall realized what had happened. The human was gone. Selyra gasped, collapsing to her knees. Guards rushed forward, but it was too late. Elias lay on the floor, a charred shadow of himself. His armor was fused to his skin in places. Smoke curled from his body. The court froze, stunned into silence. Even the attackers hesitated, realizing their weapon had performed as designed. Nothing should have survived, yet Elias did. It started small, a twitch of a finger, a faint rise and fall of his chest. Then his eyes opened, a flicker at first, then fully aware. Gasps erupted across the hall. Aliens took a step back, some dropping to their knees. No one spoke at first. The impossible was happening. Humans were supposed to die. Humans were fragile. Humans were not supposed to survive this. Elias did not rise immediately. He was alive, yes, but he could feel every injury, every burned nerve. Pain radiated through him like a living thing, but he forced himself to breathe, to focus. His mind was racing, cataloging, observing, prioritizing. The court watched, silent, tense, and terrified. Even the rival faction who had tried to kill him froze, realizing their mistake. The human was not just alive, he was awake, aware, and unbroken in his resolve. Selyra reached out, her hand shaking. "Are you alive?" Her voice was barely a whisper, but every alien in the hall heard it. Elias' lips moved, slow but deliberate. "Yes, she's safe." Shock, disbelief, fear, and anger all mingled. Scientists rushed forward, hovering instruments scanning him from every angle. Alarms blared. The weapons that had hit him malfunctioned, confused by the unexpected. Nothing in any alien species records described what was happening. He should have been dead. Yet here he was, breathing, moving, standing again. And more frightening than any weapon was his calm. He did not panic. He did not scream. He simply existed, and his existence defied everything they knew. Elias slowly rose to his feet. Every movement caused pain that should have brought him down again, yet his body responded. The human body was resilient in ways no one expected. Years of evolution on a world that demanded survival at every turn, in environments that would have killed lesser beings, had honed humans into something alien species could barely understand. The aliens were learning this truth, and they feared it. They feared a species that could walk into death and walk back out. Some nobles began to whisper about whether humans were truly a threat. Some wondered if Elias was some form of weapon disguised as flesh. Some prayed to whatever gods they had that he wouldn't move again. The rival faction's leader paled. Their plan, meant to end a human presence forever, had failed spectacularly. And now the human might do what no alien had dared, take control of the moment. Elias ignored the whispers. His first thought was always the mission: protect the princess. She was unharmed. That meant his sacrifice had succeeded. The court could burn, their factions could fight, and weapons could fail, but as long as she lived, his purpose was fulfilled. He stepped closer to her, shielded her with his body again, even as he struggled to keep upright. He could feel his strength returning, slowly, imperceptibly, as if his body was recalibrating itself after being pushed beyond its limits. The aliens watched with a mix of fascination and horror. The medical drones buzzed around him, trying to stabilize what should have been impossible. His cells, they realized, were repairing themselves at a speed no species had ever observed. Minor burns closed, bones realigned. Nerves that should have been destroyed were firing again. Every alien scientist scrambled to record, to understand, to replicate. But no one dared touch him. To do so would be to risk their own annihilation. Humans, they now understood, were unpredictable and terrifying. Finally, the princess stood. She placed a hand lightly on his shoulder, an acknowledgement not of fear but of trust. Elias looked down at her, eyes meeting golden eyes, and nodded. There was no need for words. He had done what needed to be done. She had survived. The court had witnessed a human do the impossible, and in that moment every being present realized that humans were not to be underestimated. Not now, not ever. The rival faction, seeing their plan fail, retreated, slipping through hidden exits, silent and ashamed. Other nobles murmured, fearful of what humans might be capable of. Elias ignored them all. He had no time for politics. There would be time for diplomacy later. First, the princess had to be safe, and the court had to realize that the human species could survive things that would kill any other. That realization alone could shift the balance of power in the galaxy. As the hall slowly calmed, Elias supported the princess toward a secure area. He moved carefully, every step calculated, every action precise. Humans may appear fragile, they may be small, but in truth, they were more dangerous than anyone expected. A single human could survive what countless aliens could not. A single human could change the outcome of an entire court, a battle, a war, simply by refusing to die. And for Elias Kane, survival was never about glory. It was about duty. It was about protecting those who could not protect themselves. And today he had done just that. The court would remember this day. Every species would remember this day. Humans had arrived not as a curiosity, not as a subject of pity, but as something powerful, unpredictable, and unstoppable. The Alari court had witnessed the impossible. Elias Kane had walked into death itself and walked back out. And in doing so, he had shown the galaxy that humans were not just another species to be tolerated. They were a force to be reckoned with. The first part of the story closed with the human standing tall, scarred and trembling, yet alive, and the princess beside him, safe. Outside, the distant hum of the galaxy continued, unaware that one small, resilient species had just begun its rise. The Elari court had not recovered from the shock of Elias Kane's survival. Whispers echoed through the crystal hall like restless ghosts, spreading from noble to noble, diplomat to diplomat. Some spoke in awe, some in fear, and some with bitter envy. The human had survived what no alien weapon should allow. He had done it without panic, without arrogance, and without hesitation. Princess Celara stood beside him, her golden eyes scanning the faces around her. She had always known humans were unusual, but she had never imagined anything like this. Elias had faced death willingly, and yet he stood now, injured, burning, but alive. She understood that instinctively he had done it not for glory, not for honor, but to protect her. That alone set him apart from any being she had ever known. The court's chief scientist, a tall, many-limbed creature named Viren, hovered nervously nearby. His instruments still buzzed from the readings he had just taken. "It is impossible," he muttered, his voice trembling. "The energy weapon should have vaporized him. There is no record of any species surviving this. No record anywhere." He tried to analyze the human, but every scan produced more questions than answers. The energy weapon's pulse should have destroyed everything down to the cellular level, yet every vital sign was active, stable, and accelerating toward recovery. This is beyond science," Viren whispered. A low murmur spread across the court. Members of the rival faction who had tried to assassinate the princess drew back. Their faces were pale, and their claws or tendrils or appendages, whatever their species possessed, were clenched in fear. They had come expecting to kill one human and leave the court in chaos. Instead, the human had survived a death that should have been absolute. Worse, he had protected the princess. Worse still, he had done so calmly, deliberately, and without a shred of fear. Some nobles whispered to one another, their voices trembling with disbelief. "He is not like us," one said. "He is dangerous." Another replied, "No, he is more than dangerous. He is miraculous." She looked directly at Elias and then at the assembly of aliens. "This human," she said, her voice firm, "has proven that courage is not measured by size, strength, or species. It is measured by willingness to protect others, even when death is certain." They had lived in a galaxy where power and fear determined respect, where species survived by strength or technology. Yet here was a human, a species they had often underestimated, standing in front of them after defying the laws of life and death itself. The rival faction's leader, a serpentine alien named Calyx, hissed in frustration. "This cannot be. Humans are fragile, unpredictable, limited." His voice carried across the hall, dripping with anger. "We cannot allow this aberration to exist. If you threaten the princess again, you will find out why humans don't surrender." The fear was palpable, and it was not fear of strength alone. It was fear of unpredictability, of a mind and body that refused to obey the rules of life and death as they knew them. Viren finally stepped forward, shaking. We must study this human," he said. "We must understand how he survived. It could change everything we know about biology, medicine, and survival." "I am not here to be studied," he said. "I am here to protect. The princess is safe. That is enough." Instruments hovered near him, scanning, recording, analyzing. Every measurement made the aliens more frightened. Human cells repaired themselves in ways no alien had seen. Minor burns healed instantly. Bones realigned. Even the nervous system seemed to adapt rapidly to extreme trauma. The technology they had used to harm him now only emphasized how extraordinary he was. Elias, however, remained focused. He had no desire to impress, no desire to argue. He was a soldier trained to act decisively in impossible situations. He knew the court was watching, but he also knew that the princess's safety was the priority. If that meant facing fearsome beings and political turmoil, he would do it without hesitation. Hours passed. The court settled into uneasy calm. Guards repositioned, shields were raised, and the rival faction was confined to observation chambers. Elias was taken to a private area for treatment and recovery, though he refused most medical assistance. His body was already repairing itself, and he wanted only to remain alert, ready if another threat emerged. Princess Saylyra stayed with him. "You didn't have to act," she said quietly, her voice filled with awe. "You could have stepped back. Perhaps it is time we stopped." As the sun-like lights above the hall dimmed for the evening, Elias rested. He allowed himself a moment to feel the pain in his body, the fatigue in his muscles, the tension in his nerves. Yet even in rest, his mind calculated, observed, and analyzed. Humans were survivors. It was not luck, nor was it instinct alone. It was evolution, honed through centuries on a planet that demanded resilience, strength, and adaptability. He had learned to survive where others would fail. The court, meanwhile, continued to whisper. "He is not just human," one noble said quietly. "He is something else," another whispered. "If one human can do this, what could a whole species do?" Princess Saylyra, sensing the tension, stood. "The human is under my protection," she announced. Her voice rang clear and commanding. "No harm may come to him. He is my guest, my ally, and my protector. Anyone who challenges this order will answer to me personally." The weight of her authority was immense, yet even she understood that Elias had altered the court's perception permanently. Humans were no longer simply allies. They were something new, unpredictable, and powerful. Elias nodded to her. "Thank you," he said, his voice quiet but firm. He didn't need the court to recognize him. Their fear and awe spoke louder than words. He had survived, and in doing so, he had changed everything. As the night deepened, Elias and the princess moved to a secure chamber. He allowed himself a moment to rest fully, to close his eyes, and to feel the pulse of life that had returned to him. He had faced death, and death had failed. That knowledge was both empowering and dangerous. The galaxy outside remained unaware, but within the walls of the Elari court, one truth was now undeniable. Humans were a force unlike any other. They were resilient, courageous, and willing to face death to protect others. And one human had proven that even the most advanced weapons, the most calculated attacks, and the most lethal threats could not easily overcome them. As Elias drifted into a light sleep, his body repairing, his mind remained alert. Tomorrow would bring questions, negotiations, and challenges. The rival faction would not rest. But for now, the princess was safe. The court had witnessed the impossible, and humanity had begun to claim its place in the galaxy not through fear or force, but through resilience, courage, and the unyielding refusal to die. The first part of his story had ended in survival. The second part, the court realized, was just beginning. And when humans decided to act, the galaxy would have to pay attention. The Elari royal complex entered a state of silent alert. No alarm sounded, but every guard knew something was wrong. Energy shields strengthened. Patrols doubled. The court had seen a human survive death, and that single event had shifted the balance of fear across the station. Elias Kane felt it before anyone told him. Humans had a sense for danger that came from centuries of war, disaster, and survival on a harsh world. His body was still healing, but his instincts were sharp. As he walked through the secure corridor beside Princess Saylyra, he noticed small details others ignored. A guard standing too stiff. A security drone hovering a second longer than needed. The air itself felt tense. "They are planning something," Elias said calmly. Saylyra looked at him, surprised. "You are still injured. How can you be so certain?" "On Earth, fear starts wars." He learned. Humans survived by understanding their enemies before fighting them. Calyx, the rival leader, finally slammed his tail against the floor. This human survived a weapon of extinction. That alone makes him a threat. If one human can do this, imagine an army of them. That made it worse. "You're afraid of what you don't understand," Elias said. "We don't want your galaxy. We don't want your throne. We just want to survive. But if you force us to fight, we will." Any action against him is an action against the Elari crown. Emergency lights flared as power systems failed across the lower levels of the palace. Defense grids flickered. Communication lines went silent. The rival faction had planned carefully, learning alien systems, waiting for the perfect moment. Elias felt the explosion through the floor. He moved instantly. "Princess, stay behind me," he said. Before guards could respond, Elias grabbed a fallen rifle from a security rack. It wasn't human-made, but weapons were universal. Point, fire, move. Corridor doors burst open as enemy troops flooded in, armored aliens with energy weapons glowing hot. Panic spread among palace staff. Many froze, some ran. Elias did neither. He advanced. His movements were fast, precise, controlled. He used cover naturally, firing short bursts, never wasting energy. He didn't fight like the aliens expected. He didn't charge blindly or rely on shields. He adapted in real time. When one guard fell, Elias dragged him to safety without slowing. When a blast struck his side, he gritted his teeth and kept moving. Pain was information. Humans learned that early. "Fall back," an alien commander shouted. Elias ignored it. Retreat was not an option. If the attackers reached the inner chambers, Celira would die. He reached a junction and made a quick decision. "Seal this hallway," he ordered. The guards hesitated. "You will be trapped." Heavy blast doors dropped behind him, cutting him off completely. Alone, the attackers surged forward. Elias took a breath and focused. On Earth, humans fought against predators, nature, and each other. They learned that survival wasn't about being the strongest, it was about refusing to stop. Energy blasts slammed into the walls. One hit his leg, burning deep. He stumbled, caught himself, and kept firing. His body screamed for rest. His mind refused. The aliens advanced cautiously now. They had seen him survive death. They feared him. That fear slowed them. Elias used it. He threw debris to draw fire. He repositioned constantly. He targeted weapons, joints, sensors. He didn't need to kill, only delay. Minutes passed, then more. His vision blurred. His hands shook. Still he stood. On the other side of the sealed door, Celira listened to the distant sounds of battle. Each blast felt like a strike against her chest. "He is still fighting," she whispered. Alari commanders stared at their sensors in disbelief. One human was holding an entire assault force alone. "That is impossible," one said. "No," Celira replied quietly. "That is human." Medical teams rushed forward, but panic returned when scanners showed what had happened. His injuries were severe, too severe. Organs damaged, bones fractured, internal bleeding. "No species could survive this," Viren said in horror. Elias' heart slowed, then stopped. The room fell silent. Celira stepped forward, her hands shaking. "No, not again." His heart restarted on its own. Medical instruments went wild. "He is repairing himself," Viren whispered, "actively adapting." And even death itself had failed again. When Elias woke hours later, he found Celira sitting nearby. "You should not be alive," she said softly. Elias managed a weak smile. "I hear that a lot lately." "That may be why it matters." Part 3 ended with that realization spreading through the galaxy like a quiet storm. The human had taken a deadly blast. He had taken an army. He had taken death itself. And he was still not done. The Elari royal court gathered again, but this time the atmosphere was different. There was no laughter, no casual conversation, and no false smiles. The crystal hall felt heavy, filled with unspoken respect and quiet fear. News of the failed attack had spread far beyond the palace. Across the station, across nearby systems, and soon across the galaxy, one truth echoed clearly. A single human had stood against death twice. Elias Kane stood at the center of the hall, his injuries mostly healed. Faint scars remained, marks left behind as reminders. His posture was calm, steady, and controlled. He did not look like a conqueror or a hero. He looked like a soldier who had finished his duty and waited for the next order. Princess Celira sat upon the throne, her expression calm but firm. She had not slept much since the attack. Too much had changed too quickly. The court that once questioned humanity now watched Elias with careful attention. Not hatred, not suspicion, something closer to caution mixed with awe. The rival faction stood restrained, guarded by elite forces. Calyx, their leader, looked smaller than before. His confidence was gone. He had planned to remove one human and weaken an alliance. Instead, he had strengthened it beyond anything he imagined. The chief council speaker stepped forward. This court is called to decide the future of relations between the Alari Dominion and the human species. He did so knowing he would likely die. When attacked again, he stood alone so others could escape. These are not the actions of a threat. These are the actions of a protector. We live on a world that tries to kill us every day. Heat, cold, disease, predators. We adapt or we die. Human biology is built around recovery, adaptation, and endurance. Pain does not stop them. Injury does not stop them. Even death may not always stop them. They attacked this court. They attempted assassination. They endangered the galaxy. I choose peace because of humans. Of people who fought, loved, and endured every day without knowing they were strong. We want recognition, he said. We want respect, and we want peace. We build our own. The galaxy stretched endlessly before him, bright and vast. He felt smaller than ever and stronger. Saylyra joined him. You will become a legend, she said. I don't want to be, Elias replied. That may be why you already are. Understanding makes allies. They were survivors. They were adaptable. They were not invincible, but they were relentless. They did not seek war, but they would not run from it. And most importantly, they would stand between danger and those they chose to protect. Elias prepared to return to Earth. His mission was complete. As his ship powered up, Saylyra watched from the platform. You will always have a place here, she said. Elias nodded. And you will always have an ally on Earth. Because when humans decide to stand, they do not fall easily. Elias Kane returned home not as a conqueror, but as proof. Proof that courage could change destiny. Proof that endurance could rewrite power. Proof that even in a vast, dangerous galaxy, humanity had a place. Not because they were the strongest, but because they refused to stay down. The story ended not with victory celebrations or grand speeches, but with a quiet understanding spreading across the stars. If a human takes a deadly blast for you,